Hello and welcome to the last in a series of debates for seats on Greenville City Council, between candidates for seats on Greenville City Council. I'm Lisa Ellison, co-founder and editor of the Greenville Guardian at greenvilleguardian.org. We are a nonprofit, independent online newspaper supported entirely by reader donations. It is our readers' generous support for public discourse in addressing local issues that has made the staging of these debates possible. In a moment, I'll review the format and ground rules for today's debate, but first, let's meet our questioners and the candidates. Our first questioner is Brenda Diggs. Brenda is president of the Oaks Neighborhood Association and longtime member of and two-time chair of the city's Neighborhood Advisory Board. She is also the Neighborhood Advisory Board's representative to the city's Comprehensive Plan Committee, a broad group of stakeholders which is providing input for the upcoming 10-year update to the city's Horizons Plan. And she is a participant in the city's Dismantling Racism initiative. Good afternoon, Brenda.
Good afternoon.
Our second questioner is Diane Kulik. Like Brenda, Diane is a longtime resident of District 5 and the president of her homeowners association in Lindale. Diane is serving her first term as the at-large appointee to the city's Police Community Relations Commission, which she also chairs. She played a key role in organizing and presenting recent public forums on the state courts and on local traffic safety issues. Good afternoon, Diane.
Good afternoon.
Now, your District 5 candidates for City Council. Incumbent Rick Croskery is seeking his second term as District 5 representative to City Council. A doctor of internal medicine at Physicians East, he is medical supervisor of ECU's Human Performance Laboratory. Rick has served on the boards of the United Way and the Literacy Volunteers of Pitt County, the New Directions Family Violence Center, and the Pitt Greenville Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Challenger PJ Connelly is seeking his first term on City Council. The property manager and owner at Connelly Properties, he graduated from East Carolina University with a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in finance in 2005. A licensed real estate agent since 2006, PJ retired from the Los Angeles Angels Major League Baseball team after a successful college pitching career at ECU. Welcome, PJ.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well.
Before we begin, a bit about the district these candidates seek to represent. District 5 is often considered the city's most affluent. Occupying the south central portion of Greenville, District 5 is largely residential, though it also contains commercial properties, mainly along stretches of Red Banks Road, Greenville Boulevard, Evans Street, and Fire Tower. Our aim today is to sound out both candidates on the issues facing District 5 and their strategies for addressing those issues. The debate will be conducted in a minimum of 6 rounds, each of which will begin when a new question is posed. Our two questioners will alternate, with Brenda Diggs posing the first question to begin round 1. Questions must be answerable by both candidates. Questioners, please remember that we are concerned with issues related to governing those who live, work, and play in Greenville. Questions pertaining to only one candidate's experience, behavior, or personal life are not on the table. After a question is posed, the first respondent will have 3 minutes to answer. The other candidate then gets 3 minutes as well. Then it's back to the first respondent for a 90-second rebuttal, and finally back to their opponent for their 90-second rebuttal. The round is then over and a new round begins with a new question from the other questioner. The candidate responding first in each round will alternate just as the questioners do. As determined by a coin flip a few minutes ago, Rick Croskery will respond first in round 1. I will keep time for the responses and rebuttals and will hold up 3 fingers to signal candidates that they have 30 seconds to wrap up. I will cut off candidates when they exceed the allotted time. There will be roughly 55 minutes of questions and answers, and we will take a 10-minute break midway through. There will be at least 6 rounds, and we will add rounds if time permits. After the question and answer section, we will move along to closing statements. And both candidates will have 3 minutes. We're ready to begin. Let's stay focused on the issues, and good luck to both candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Croskery will answer first, and here is Brenda Diggs with the first question.
Good afternoon to our candidates again. We'd like to find out a little bit about you personally. So my first question is, what is your passion as it relates to public service, And how will we see it lived out as you represent District 5?
That's an interesting question. My passion, I think, in everything that I do is in helping people. That's why I chose the profession that I'm in. And I've been serving as an internist here in Greenville for over 30 years. Some of the families that I take care of, I'm now in the 4th and 5th generations of those families. So getting to know the people and how they relate to one another and who's married to who and who lives where all over eastern North Carolina has given me a great opportunity to get to know the area and what makes the people here tick. I'm not here from Greenville originally, but I do love people and love working with people and solving problems. I solve problems as a physician, and that's what I really originally ran the first time I came to try and bring council two things. First of all, loving the people here, knowing how they tick, and knowing what their needs are, and second, being able to diagnose and treat problems. So that's my passion.
Thank you.
PJ?
One of my passions and one of the reasons I decided that I wanted to run for city council was, I love Greenville. It's a great place. I've grown up in Wisconsin. I was there for 18 years, and for probably about 5 or 6 years, I traveled around to different states, and I've been to a lot of different places. And Greenville was one of those places that I really, really enjoyed, and I knew that I could raise a family here. And one of the passions, that caused me to go ahead and make the decision to go ahead and run was, my daughter is 2.5 years old, and I really want her to be able to grow up in a great city, have the opportunities to grow up here, get a good education, go off to school, and then come back here and get a job. So that's one of the main reasons. I want her to be able to say that she's proud of Greenville, North Carolina as her home city.
Do you have any follow-up responses?
I
90
don't think
seconds.
that question begs rebuttal, but I appreciate what he does.
I'm the same way.
On to round 2. PJ Connelly answers first, and Diane Kulik will ask the question.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for coming today. Here's my first question. Since you are running for City Council District 5, how do you plan to enhance the quality of life here in District 5 and address the crime in our district?
It's a great question, and that's pretty much one of my platforms as far as why I'm running. One of the things I think that we really need to focus on in the city of Greenville, not only just our district, but the entire city, is we need to be able to provide jobs for people here. In my opinion, everything that happens with our city is derived from jobs, whether it be in the private sector, whether it be in the public sector. We need to be able to provide jobs for the people that live here, live in our district. And a lot of the issues that we see that are happening with crime in this area have a lot to do with the fact that people are not employed. I deal with it on a regular basis being a property manager, and we have a lot of people that come in that are not gainfully employed. And what happens is we have people that come out on our properties and they don't work, and they're the ones that cause the problems, and they're the ones that cause the headaches for us. And they're not our tenants, but they are people that are staying out of the property, and they're not gainfully employed. If they were, that would help out the crime in our area. I can tell you, I do have some rental properties that we manage in our area, and luckily we haven't had those problems. But until we get those jobs and we're able to get those people employed, we're going to continue to always see a problem with crime.
One of the good things that's been going on in this city for several years is a concept of community policing. And we've just hired a new police chief who I think, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet and talk to yet, but I understand he was hired to sort of continue that type of program. And certainly the police force has been working very hard to move towards that. And dividing the city into sections and getting the actually police on the street involved with their neighborhoods, their communities, having somebody sort of assigned is helpful in neighborhoods like the ones that we live in. And I certainly would suggest that one of the first things we do is to support the continuation of community policing concept, and get on board with it. Get to know the people, the officers that are assigned to your neighborhood. Strong neighborhood associations like you and Ms. Diggs have been involved with are very important also to reporting things. Most of the crime that in the neighborhoods that we live in, there have been, car break-ins and petty crimes and stuff, but there have been some violent crimes as well, murders, that sort of thing. But in the remainder of the city, we do certainly have people who can come into our neighborhoods from other areas who have problems, just as Mr. Connelly referred to, who don't work. And we still need to work very hard on policing the gangs and on working hard on the university area, making sure that people have good lives in all the other areas of the city. So, thank you.
90 seconds to respond.
He's right as far as supporting the police department. When it comes down to it, when there's an issue, when you're scared, when there's a problem, the first person that you call is the police department. We need to be supportive of the police department, and the community action is very important. And people, one of the things that I always recommend and I talk to people about is, neighborhood associations, getting together and talking and getting to know your neighbors. One of the best things about living in the neighborhood that we're in right now over in Bedford, and one of the nice things at Irish Creek is everybody's so friendly. Everybody was so nice. They knew what was going on. When we leave town, we'll call our neighbors up and tell them, hey, can you look out for our house? Can you grab our mail for us? Can you just kind of keep an eye on our house? And getting to know your neighbors, I think, is a wonderful step, as well as helping the police in any way you can.
Rick?
I have very little to add. I would just say as we plan our neighborhoods and as we build them, to be mindful of ingress and egress from neighborhoods and make sure that we have adequate lighting, adequate security at the places where people can access our homes.
Rick Croskery will answer first in the third round, and Brenda has the question.
What is your definition of smart growth, and how would you ensure that it is applied as Greenville continues to attract businesses and the population increases?
Smart growth basically is maximizing your potential as a community. We have a couple of major economic drivers in this community with the hospital, medical school, the university, and therefore we are in the process of making lives for young citizens, particularly at the university, and that requires having good places for them to live, places for them to play, places for them to be entertained, places for them to shop, and trying to make it so that it's fairly walkable, fairly dense, urban. Smart growth requires cities to make their spaces safe, but they should also make their spaces beautiful so that people want to live there. Smart growth also requires cities to plan forward many years so that we can capture and hold on to some of our green spaces between the various parts of the city as they're developed, so that we're not trying to go back and retrofit these types of areas later when we need places for park and recreation, that sort of thing. But I think you start by concentrating on your urban core and on your major players in the community and what their needs are. And in this particular community, those are the major needs. In other communities, smart growth might start at a different area. And I think we've made pretty good strides on starting on some smart growth with those things in mind over the last few years.
In my opinion, smart growth is, you have to have a plan with smart growth. The wonderful thing that the city's doing right now is they're developing the New Horizons plan. It's definitely one of those things that is a necessity. Being a business owner, when you go into business, you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you don't know what you're doing with your business. But you also have to be mindful that things will change as time goes on. So you have to understand that sometimes you do have to stray away from that plan for the better of the city, but that plan that was put in place is kind of your guiding track as far as where the city needs to go. And that's very important for the citizens of Greenville to be involved as much as they can in this plan, because they have a voice and they want Greenville to develop to a certain extent. But you do have to be mindful of what's going on right now. Different things happen at different times. I can tell you, in business, every day I have new competition in my business, and if I were to stay on that plan and say this is what I was going to do every time, and that same competition, has the same exact plan that I have, I've got to be able to justify why I have a better business than my competition. So we do have to be at the forefront, but we do need to be smart about it, and we do need to use that as a guide as far as smart growth.
Would you like to respond?
I'm glad that you mentioned the Horizons Plan. I think that's a good place to start, and it is sort of a living document, and it is revised every few years. We're in the process of revising it now, and certainly we depend on that as we make decisions for planning and zoning changes and that sort of thing. We generally try and stay within that plan, but as is rightly pointed out, the community changes, and sometimes the plan needs to be adapted to those changes. It is a living document, though, and I would say that one of the great things about the way we do it, if you were at the convention center recently, is that we break it down not just looking at a grid on a map and what fits where, but looking at it philosophically, how the pieces fit together to make people live in a healthy lifestyle, how they fit together where people can commute easily, have businesses situated in the proper areas, making sure that our streets and thoroughfares are planned and designed properly ahead of time so that we have less curb cuts, side access roads and such, so that we can deal with some of our traffic problems and such. So it's a great document.
PJ?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to add too is, I had mentioned this in a previous debate that, along with the smart growth, we do have to make sure that we're conscious of taking care of what we have right now too. One of the things I had mentioned is that, going through the city, when people come into the city, not just companies, but people in general that come here, especially today, here being a football weekend, you want people to come here and have a good presence of Greenville. We need to make sure that we're going through and we're presenting Greenville, in the light that we see it at. We want it to be able to look in the best condition when people drive through our streets. We want to make sure that our streets are in good condition. We want to make sure that our landscaping looks great. You want an inviting atmosphere when you come into Greenville. So that's one of the other aspects I think that we need to worry about to be able to have smart growth.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question before we go to our 10-minute break. PJ, you will answer this question first, and Diane will ask.
That would be me. What can we do for young professionals to make them want to stay here in Greenville? This problem affects economic development and their quality of life.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
That's part of my platform too. We need to be able to provide jobs for the people to stay here. Walking through the district, I can tell you I've talked to many people that have children that went to East Carolina, or they went off to school at UNC or NC State or Duke, one of those schools. And one of the disheartening things that I see is that you ask them where their kids are. Where are they at? Did they come back to Greenville? Did they come here to get a job? And they don't, because they cannot find a job after they graduate from school. And the big problem is that we don't have those jobs available for them. There's plenty of retail jobs, there's plenty of higher end jobs, but there needs to be more of an emphasis on jobs that people can make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. They can come here and have a good life. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and find ways to strengthen our current businesses that we have here, and also attract new businesses that are here. Because both of those are driving factors in our city to making our city a better place. We need to be able to provide them with jobs where they're willing to come back here. I want my daughter, she's 2.5 years old. I mean, this is way down the road, but I want her to be able to come back and live here in Greenville so I can see her on a regular basis. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I chose to move to Greenville because I love Greenville. Greenville's a great location. I've been able to have my business here, and I fell in love with the city. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of cities through baseball, playing baseball. I've been fortunate. But I want to be able to have her come back here, be able to get a job, raise a family so I can see grandchildren someday. I mean, this is way down the line, but that's my ultimate goal. I think we do need to get jobs for people in this area.
I also think good jobs are very important. And there's always, we can always do better. I moved here in 1981, and every year that I've lived in Greenville, we've had approximately 3% population growth. And every census, every 10 years, we've had approximately 30% growth. Those people are coming from somewhere, and they're doing something. The hospital has grown tremendously. The university has grown tremendously. All the different professions and infrastructure needed to grow a large hospital and a large university are available here. You need accountants, you need attorneys, you need retail, you need restaurants. So as those things succeed, there is plenty of room for entrepreneurs to found businesses and work. So certainly jobs are important. And in fact, we've had a couple of companies here recently of our large industries that have expanded tremendously because they like this area. So certainly it's important to bring jobs. But as I said, it's important to work off the infrastructure that we have now. The thing that will keep the young professionals here is that this is a great place to live. If our public spaces are beautiful, if you can walk from place to place, if there's plenty of entertainment, restaurants, neat things to go to, museums. And again, those things, we're working on those things. They're not here as much as I'd like them to be, but there are all kinds of things that are coming to fruition that are, especially in the urban core area, that are working toward that. So I'd like to see us continue to look at things like supporting our young entrepreneurs in the Dickinson area, and that's in the uptown area, to make it a more inviting, exciting places for the young people to live, because our needs for getting jobs here, we've got plenty of capacity for keeping them here if we make it a nice place to live.
90-second response?
I understand where you're coming with that, but when it comes down to, I can tell you, I graduated from East Carolina 10 years ago, and I can tell you, the people that I graduated with were going off to different cities, and they were going off to different places. And I can tell you, I know it's still the same way because I've talked to several people that I've come in contact with that are tenants of mine. And I'll ask them, what are they doing? They're going back to their city. They've gotten their education here, and then they're going to go back to their city, and they're going to make their city a better place. I want them to stay here in Greenville and make our city a better place. They've learned everything that they've learned here in Greenville, but we do need to be able to make sure that we can provide them with a job and an education, because when they get into the workforce here in Greenville, they're going to be spending money here in Greenville. They're going to create tax revenue for us. They're going to be buying a house. They're going to be paying property taxes on it. And one of the nice things is then we can use some of those tax dollars that we're getting by increasing our tax base, and we can build greenways. We can build more sidewalks. We can make things better around here. And that's one of the things I think we really need to focus on finding jobs.
My response would be, again, that certainly young people, this is a mobile society. People grow up, a lot of times they don't want to live where their parents did, at least initially, and they often bounce back later on. You came here from elsewhere and stayed. I came here from elsewhere, from the Midwest, just like you, and stayed. I like to tell people that I wasn't able to escape the orbit of Greenville. It has a great draw, and the people here are great. It's the volunteers here are great. The leaders here are great. The institutions here are great. There's certainly some infrastructure problems, and there's certainly some socioeconomic problems that we have to deal with. But, you know, young people are going to migrate in and out of the community. Some of them, like us, are going to stick. So we need to make the community, for the people like us to come in, as well as the ones who want to stay, the best it can be.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Welcome back to the District 5 debate. Rick Croskery will answer first in this round, and Brenda Diggs will ask the question.
According to the consulting company that is spearheading the update of the Horizons Plan, Greenville has only 37% owner-occupied housing. The average in North Carolina is 67%. What is your plan to increase home ownership in Greenville?
I'd love to increase home ownership in Greenville. You know, we've been through kind of a recession lately, and there's some stock sitting out there that's unoccupied that I'd love to see people move into. We do have, I think, comparing us to all the other communities, though, does skew things a little bit because of having a university here, having a lot of people who live in apartments. I think the main places we need to look are places like West Greenville, where you know, there's certainly a lot of people who rent, and the city's been working on increased opportunity in those neighborhoods, trying to buy distressed properties and either fix them up and make them better, or get rid of them and have other developers build new ones for owner-occupied homes. I think also just having our code enforcement folks work well with the community to make sure that our homeowners are satisfied, the homeowners who live in neighborhoods that have a high amount of rental in them are satisfied that we're doing what we need to enforce the standards that we have. If the homeowners are satisfied, they'll stay. If they're not, they'll fly away. And then we'll have more not owner-occupied housing.
You know, he's right about the, those numbers are a little skewed just because of the fact that we do have the university here. You know, so there's a tremendous amount of people that are renting as of right now. And you know, they're not permanent citizens here. So, you know, it's a little bit skewed, but, you know, one of the things that Greenville is fortunate is we have a lot of land here. So there's been a lot of development. So there's always new development that's taking place, and you know, I agree that we need to go ahead and, you know, try to help people get into houses. You know, I think home ownership's a really exciting thing. I can tell you when I bought my first house, you know, it was a townhouse. I can remember picking up the keys at the attorney's office and how exciting it was to get into the place. And, you know, as a community, we need to understand that, you know, home ownership's a great thing. You know, there's plenty of opportunities when you own a house, but there is quite a bit of inventory that's out there right now. And you know, one of the nice things that the credit union did, I think it was about a year ago, they were buying large blocks of properties over in West Greenville, and they're revitalizing it. That's an area that, you know, I can tell you has sat there for some time, and it's a beautiful area. There's some beautiful homes over there. I can tell you, driving up and down some of the streets, there's some beautiful Victorian-style houses over there that I look at, and they have so much potential to it. That's something that would be really nice if, you know, we could go ahead and go in there and rehab those houses and make it nice. And, you know, it's so close to our uptown area down there. I think that would be a great thing for the Greenville area.
I would only say also that, again, if we're talking about keeping young professionals and everybody in this community making sure that it's a good community to live in and that they're planning on being here long-term rather than transiently. The more transients that you have, the more rental you're going to have. The more permanent residents who are making a life here and plan to stay here, the more home ownership you're going to have. And the way they can buy those homes is just as Mr. Connelly says, we've got to have good jobs that pay well so that people can afford to buy housing. And so decrease the transients and increase the affluence, and our community will solve that problem.
It's tough to argue with that. I mean, he's right. I mean, we need to have jobs here, and I think, when you have jobs, and I think one of the neat things is, seeing people that transition. I get it on a regular basis, that transition from being a renter into home ownership. I think that's a really neat thing. Sometimes, you get disheartened, being in my position because, we're renting properties to, these tenants. But, it's really kind of gratifying to see the fact that, they're moving up, they're stepping up, they're becoming homeowners, and the life that they're creating here in Greenville. It's really kind of exciting. So, but like he said, we need to have jobs. I mean, we definitely need to have jobs that they can afford to get into these houses.
Thank you very much.
In the 6th round, P.J. Connelly will answer first, and Diane Kulik will ask the question.
Okay, what could we do to make Greenville a destination city? A recent program that was put on by Horizons, a presenter had an overhead map that showed destination cities in North Carolina. It showed Kinston and New Bern. In our area, Greenville was not marked.
It's a very good question. There's a lot involved with being a destination city. I mean, you kind of have to understand what people are looking for, and you need to be able to have things that you can offer or events that you can offer to make people want to come to Greenville. My personal opinion, being in college, there wasn't a whole lot to do in Greenville. You need a way for people to understand why they should come to Greenville instead of coming to New Bern or another city, or go to the beach instead. We need to be able to offer things that are entertaining, that are fun, for people of all ages, not just young people. You need to be able to offer something. One of the things, I talked to a group of guys several months ago, and I said one of the things that was really disheartening. I remember when I came to Greenville for the first time, and I had just moved into Pirates Place, and one of the things that they had, I think 2 weeks after I moved in, was this huge concert. They had these huge names that were there. I can't tell you the last time we had a huge concert, or the last time we had an event like that that attracted that much attention. That's one of many things that could help bring people in. I'll tell you another thing. I mean, my wife loves to shop, and I love her to death, but she always wants to go to Raleigh, and I'm an advocate of bringing business here. Retail business is good. I'd like to get higher paying jobs as well, but I would love for the fact that I don't have to get in the car and drive 75 miles to Raleigh, to go shopping. Is that going to be a destination thing? Probably not, but that's going to be a reason to bring people here. And then if we can bring in other businesses that are going to be willing to, provide entertainment or make this a destination place. There's endless opportunities. There's so much land in Greenville that you could do different things in. And I can tell you the land values here are so much lower than different locations. So there's plenty of opportunities. I know I'm being a little vague, but you kind of, there's a lot involved with being a destination city. You kind of have to find out exactly why people would want to come here, to make it a destination city.
Well, to do that, I think you need to have the unique combination of dreamers and entrepreneurs working together to help us maximize our potential. One of the things that we've got on the drawing board right now is the Tar River Legacy Plan, and how we can somehow utilize that great natural resource that just sits there. And there have been lots of interesting ideas bandied about things that you can do there. But making the city fun to be in. I was recently in San Antonio, and the Riverwalk there is the #1 destination in the entire state of Texas. Texas is a big state with lots of big cities, but tourist-wise, that's the #1 destination. And basically, they took the little San Antonio River and just made a little horseshoe out of it and put restaurants and such along it. You got to have dreamers and entrepreneurs who think of things like that. We have opportunities. We've been looking at sports teams, minor league baseball. Maybe you could pitch for us for Greenville. We've recently been working on the Go Science Museum and museum things like that, and getting them together in one place. I've talked years ago about renovating the old theater downtown. It's just a block or two down from that, and we have a restaurant scene building up there. If you could make that a school kid destination, you have every fourth grader in eastern North Carolina at some time during the school year takes a field trip to the Go Science Museum. Then they have a lunch at one of our restaurants. Then they go across the street and there's a puppet show or a play or something at the theater. There are lots of things you can do like that. You got to get people working together. One of my dreams has been, and I said this in the first campaign too, taking First Street, that big wide street that looks over the river and the town common, making it like a First Street promenade where there's businesses all along that street overlooking the town common, penthouses on the top, shopping destinations along the bottom, restaurants, open air dining. But obviously you have to have people who will buy into that. One of the things we have coming up is we're opening the Town Creek culvert, and we're having to do a lot of rework downtown, but they're talking about daylighting. In fact, taking a couple of blocks of that creek out so that we actually have a stream running through our downtown area again. Great opportunity for putting retail along there, walkways and such.
Response?
Entrepreneurs is exactly, what will end up bringing, entertainment, bring, people to Greenville. I mean, we have a huge, like I said, a huge amount of land that's available out here, and there's a lot of, to me, in my opinion, a lot of underutilized areas, and one of the areas I agree with is the over by the river. I mean, there's a huge piece of land that sits down there, and I can tell you, we go down to Sunday in the Park every summer, and we go to just about every single event down there. And there's different issues that need to be addressed down there at that section, but that whole other piece of land that's right next to it, it's tough to imagine, what we could possibly use over there. Well, I shouldn't say it's tough to imagine, but it's a piece of land that could be very much utilized, and you could have different things over there that could bring people there. I think a great thing would be, could you imagine having a kayaks? You'd be able to go out there and if you could tie up to a dock and go to a restaurant over there. I think that would be a great opportunity. But there's several different things. But as far as destinations, it's a matter of, I think, finding out what people want and then utilizing what our resources we have right now and strengthening entrepreneurs in our area and the ones looking to relocate to our areas.
As I would say, things are happening, and you talk about the town common area, for instance. We just, within the last 2 weeks, got a $750,000 donation from Trillium to build a accessible playground on that area. And people have talked about bridges from the town common, that sort of thing. We're in the process right now of upgrading our boat dock, and one of the things that we talked about just in a city council meeting within the last 2 or 3 months was accessibility for canoes and kayaks. So certainly those things are great. We have down the river a little ways, we have 120 acres, Phil Carroll Nature Preserve, that's just sitting empty. It doesn't have access now. But I talked about, hey, could we do something like a botanical garden or a butterfly garden or something there? Or again, people coming town for other things. My grand idea for a museum on the Tar River is the Museum of the Pirate. And I'd love to see us have a pirate museum for kids and adults of silly things as well as serious things, learning about the history of pirates in films and pirates in literature and that sort of thing. So, we've got all kinds of resources. We just have to put our brains into it and get the people with the ideas and the people with the money to work together.
In the seventh round, Rick Croskery will answer first, and Brenda Diggs will ask the question.
Okay, Dr. Croskery. Out of all 100 counties in the state, Pitt County is ranked as the single most dangerous for accidents. How can the city and county work together to remove this distinction?
I knew as soon
I
as you
knew it
said
was
100
coming.
counties, that question was coming. You're absolutely right, and it's something that I've talked about many times in council meetings and when I was running the first time. We have a burden in this town, and putting on my Chamber of Commerce hat, we used to say it was great because on any given day, in addition to the population of this city and the infrastructure of this city for traffic, we have people coming from all around eastern North Carolina to go to the doctor, to do their shopping, to go to restaurants, to go to theaters. And so on any given day, we have 20 to 40% extra population in this town, and they're driving around on our streets. And so we need to really be mindful of our traffic control here. We've had some traffic, we're working on a traffic study now. In fact, Ms. Gulick's commission had a presentation a couple weeks ago talking about the city engineers working on, again, timing the lights. But we need to not let people, run through red lights 3 and 4 cars after the red light has changed. We certainly need better traffic enforcement as well as planning. Pedestrian safety as well is very important, and I've talked about that a lot. And it's sad that the city, as it grew from its infancy, didn't force us to have sidewalks everywhere. Places where Patrick and I grew up, I expect the towns that you came from all had sidewalks everywhere, and they were just part of the building of the plan. We have the DOT is putting some safe pedestrian crosswalks at many of our major intersections and upgrading the ones that we have. That's a good plan that's going on right now. But traffic engineering, traffic enforcement, and pedestrian safety are all things that we need to continue to work hard on.
We do have quite a bit of traffic here in Greenville, and I think one of it's unfortunate that there's that many accidents that are taking place in our city, but it's one of the things that you have to deal with when you're in a city that's growing at the rate that our city's growing. And things change. More and more people keep coming to our area, and you can tell. I can tell you traffic pattern wise. In the summertime, traffic's a lot less heavy in the summertime than it is during the fall and the winter and the spring, just due to the fact that the students are gone. So you're talking about a large amount of people. But one of the things I think that Chief Aiden, when he was here, he did a really good job, is he implemented a bunch of different strategies, and I can tell you the presence around the city of Greenville, when you see police officers on a regular basis, I can tell you going up and down Fire Tower Road, people are going up and down there. I get past, going 65, 75 miles an hour on Fire Tower Road, and one of the nice things is when they set up these checkpoints, where they're enforcing by radar, people start to see that, and they're mindful that that's going to happen if they continue to break the law. I can tell you, when I lived over in Irish Creek, which is right off of Old Tar Road, right after you hit Fire Tower Road, the police department, the Winterville Police Department and the Greenville Police Department, I guess, teamed up together, and there's a median that's right in the middle there, and the traffic pattern on Evans Street just is not conducive for the amount of homes that are along where Winterville is. And Irish Creek is in the city limits, which is in Winterville, so it does pertain to the city of Greenville, but it's just not conducive for that traffic. They probably never imagined that we were going to grow out in that direction, and Winterville would grow in that direction. But dealing with the city, they would team up together, and every single day that I would go to work, every time, I think it was every Tuesday or Thursday, they would be pulling people over, and it was just a regular thing. And I can tell you, after about 2 months of doing that, the amount of people that were driving in that middle lane decreased significantly. Absolutely significantly. And another thing that he had pointed out was, the pedestrians. Another neat thing that I saw was I was driving through town. I was over by where the Greenway entrance is off of 5th Street, close to where St. Peter's Church is. there was a police officer standing in the middle of the road, and I couldn't figure out what in the world he was doing. And the news cameras were all out there taking pictures, and he was handing out, I think it was gift cards, because people were actually obeying what they were supposed to do and they were stopping at the crosswalks, which and I think that's something that we need to go ahead and focus on.
Response?
Mr. Connelly talks about Fire Tower Road and its hazards, and yet it's a pretty well-planned road compared to, as we've grown out of the city. If you compare it to Greenville Boulevard, for instance, it's unfortunate that one of our major interests, sports interests, is NASCAR, because I think everybody feels when they get behind the wheel on Greenville Boulevard that they're driving in a NASCAR race. But we have a lot of young people driving in this community, a lot of inexperienced drivers. We have a lot of people who are on cell phones. I referred to San Antonio a minute ago. Both San Antonio and Austin, when I was there a few months ago, they had big signs across the top of the highways that said they're going to start to enforce the no cell phone. You have to either be hands-free or off your cell phone, and if you're using a phone in your car with your hand, you're going to get a ticket. I think that would be a very good ordinance to put into place for us. It would help some things we do anyway. But as far as, I sit on the Parking and Public Transportation Commission. We've spent a lot of time talking about crosswalks like the ones over by the university and down by the Green Mill Run, where we've done that. And obviously enforcing our crosswalks law, both for the pedestrians, no jaywalking, as well as for the drivers. Stop when you see somebody in a crosswalk. That's a state law. We need to do those things.
In addition to that, I think that another thing that we could really focus on too is, with the crosswalks, and there, a lot of times I can tell you going through the town, and I can tell you going even downtown, I couldn't tell you the last time that some of the lines were sprayed, as far as designating where the crosswalks are. And to me, that seems like that's a very simple and very cost-effective thing to do. That's not going to cost the city a lot of money, but the enforcement of it's going to be the key, because I can tell you, and a lot of times we're guilty of that as a city, and that's something we'll have to look at, is there's not the way to cross the road. I can tell you I've seen people that cross Greenville Boulevard, and I mean, that is an absolute hazard, going 50 miles an hour in some sections of Greenville Boulevard, and people are just walking across the streets. I mean, we need to, and to me that seems like a very simple thing that you could do, is as far as creating the crosswalks and designating them, but enforcing the law and working with the police department and the community working together, that's a simple thing that's not very costly to the city that they can do. And I think that the police department's doing an excellent job right now, and I hope that the new police chief will enforce that as well.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question. PJ Connelly will answer first, and Diane Kulik will ask it.
All right. We value our peaceful, well-maintained, and family neighborhoods. When a change for the 3 unrelated rule was considered, it became a very contentious issue in our city. Would you support the rule as it is now? And should it become would you support the rule as it is now, should it become part of the city council's agenda in the future?
That's a great question, but I'll be completely honest with you, that doesn't really have anything to do with our district. From all the contention that there was regarding this situation, it had to do with the university area. I can tell you, driving up and down the road and knowing my neighbors, it really doesn't have anything to do with District 5. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
I hope this issue doesn't surface again. Pretty much every candidate in every forum that I've seen has said the same sort of thing. I supported keeping it at 3 unrelated, which I had lived in that neighborhood when I first moved here for several years, and I had seen the neighborhood destabilized. We were talking about rental versus ownership of properties, and it's now 80 to 85% rental. At the time I lived there, it was probably 50. I would like to see that neighborhood revitalized, and I think trying to keep it from increasing in density of renters is a good thing for that neighborhood, and it's good for the city even if you live in a different district. One of the reasons for that is what we've been talking about, the economic development of our urban core, Dickinson, walkability. That's a select neighborhood for young professionals, young people to get the fixer-uppers and make it a great place to own your home and live and be part of the local scene, whether it's going to Christie's Europub or walking over downtown and going to one of our restaurants or shopping areas there. And so as our town common gets better, as our urban core gets better, as we have more of a draw to people to want to stay in that area, we need to preserve that area so that it can be used as mostly home ownership again.
Home ownership is definitely a great thing, and one of the things that I've mentioned several times, throughout this debate was things change, and different things. Honestly, I don't really have a stance, and that wasn't to be mean or rude to you whatsoever, but I really don't have a stance on that whole issue. But, home ownership is definitely something that we need to strengthen here in Greenville, and I think we need to do whatever we can to strengthen it. But to me, that's one of those issues that's been passed long down the road, and it is the way it is right now, and that's the way the law is. But I can agree with you on the fact that we do need to have home ownership, and we need to strengthen it however we can. But economic conditions change things. Who knows? Maybe this will come up sometime down the line. But I can agree with you that the fact that home ownership is definitely something we need to strengthen.
I think I've said my piece on this, so thank you very much.
Just to clarify, that law is currently that 3 unrelated people can live in a house, but the homeowner can apply for an allowance to get a 4th? Is that the way it is now?
No.
Please correct me.
No.
There, 3 unrelated people can live together in a rental house in Greenville city limits. In one small neighborhood, which was selected before I came on, there was temporarily an ordinance that allowed it to go up to 4, and several of those homes had been renovated for 4. Early in this term, that was overturned in that district, that overlay district, and once again that district allows no more than 3 unrelated people to live in a house. However, the homes that had already been renovated and were they were grandfathered in, so there are a few homes in that area that are allowed to have 4 unrelated.
No. Thank you. Well, that completes the question and answer portion of our debate, and it's time now for closing statements. As determined by a coin flip earlier, P.J. Connelly will begin. P.J., you have 3 minutes.
I'd just like to say, I really appreciate the Greenville Guardian putting this on. It's great. This is a great opportunity for Rick and myself to go ahead and I guess give you what our thoughts are. The reason I decided that I wanted to run for city council was, I wanted to be a voice. There's so many times, in my opinion, there's 2 different types of people. There's leaders and then there's followers. I've always been a leader, and I want to be able to have a voice in the city of Greenville, and I want to help Greenville grow to be a better city. I want to bring jobs here. I want to be able to retain people. Greenville is a wonderful location. We have so many wonderful things that are offered here. But like I said, the entire time, one of my sole reasons that I'm running is I want to be able to increase, the income levels here in Greenville. I want to be able to bring jobs here. You have to be creative. You have to be innovative. Being a business person, I understand what it's like. I know what it's like to sit down and look at a budget, look at a plan. I understand, what's necessary to bring jobs here. There's a lot that's involved in that, and there's more than just making sites readily available. There's more than doing different things that you think that are going to bring jobs here. You have to understand that when companies come into town and when they're looking to relocate here, they want to make sure the economic conditions are going to be conducive for them to grow their company. I want to be able to have my daughter live here. I mean, I can't say it enough. I can tell you from a perspective that I'm from Wisconsin, and my parents live there right now, and it breaks their heart every time we get into the car that they cry because we're going back and they're not going to see their granddaughter that's 2.5 years old. I don't want to be in that perspective. I don't want to be in that situation. I want, to be able to have my daughter close to me. I don't want her to have to go off to Raleigh. I don't want her to have to go to Wilmington or go to Charlotte. I want people to be able to find a job here. I want people that graduate from the university, graduate from Pitt Community College, graduate from high school. I want people to be able to find a good quality paying job, and I want people to be able to strengthen Greenville, grow Greenville, be able to increase our tax base so we're able to add really nice things like greenways, strengthen our infrastructure. There's plenty of things that can be done, but we need to be able to bring enterprise here and be able to bring jobs that people are willing to stay here for, and that's why I'm running.
And our final closing statement, 3
And
minutes.
I also would like to thank the Greenville Guardian for doing this and having this, I guess, more of a discussion than a debate. It's been very good. I also want to thank my opponent, P.J. Connelly. I think, having a good, articulate civil person running against you makes you both a better opponent and makes for a better campaign and better airing of the issues. I'll just repeat some of the things that I've run for in the past. My slogan last time was healthy growth for Greenville, and it remains that. It's been a privilege to serve the citizens for the last couple of years. My goal is to continue healthy growth through economic development, through enhanced cultural and recreational opportunities, through safer streets and improved traffic management, through improved public transportation, great parks and green spaces throughout the city, increased walkability, development of our urban core, community policing and crime deterrence, protection and conservation of our river, wooded areas, and our natural resources, and encouragement of public-private partnerships in order to accomplish our community goals. I've been working on that the last 2 years, and my intention, if re-elected, would be to continue those things. Thank you.
P.J. Connelly, Rick Croskery, I thank you both for sharing your ideas, for your decorum, and most of all, for your participation. You've done a great service to the voters of your district here today, and you have our sincere thanks. Questioners, fantastic job. Brenda Diggs, past chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Board, and Diane Kulik, president of the Police Community Relations Commission. In closing, the Greenville Guardian sincerely thanks our subscribing readers for making this event possible. Akila Thigpen at Vision on Film for her expert videography services at a generously discounted rate, the City of Greenville staff for their coordination, patience, and hard work, and Steve Johnson at the Minority Voice newspaper, and Jake Postma at GPAT TV for their help and coordination, and special thanks to the co-founder of the Greenville Guardian, Tony Knoll, without whom none of this would have been possible. Remember, you can watch rebroadcasts of this debate beginning next Friday, October 2nd, and full versions of all debates in this series will continue to air through the election campaign at GPAT TV, Channel 23. Check their website, gpattv.org, for scheduling, and be sure to visit greenvilleguardian.org for continuing coverage right through Election Day. When you visit, please consider a donation to support our nonprofit work in the public interest. I'm Lisa Ellison, co-founder and editor of the Greenville Guardian, thanking everyone here at City Hall and those watching at home for joining us.